The Doctor Is In is a co-production of Ave Maria Radio and EWTN Radio and carried across the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network.
I need you to knock some sense into me. I'm sure you can.
Yeah, I don't know.
I enjoy listening to you. I don't always agree with everything.
All right, enough of this persiflage.
So, you want my question?
I'm certainly not going to get myself in trouble by telling you what to do.
That makes great sense. Gosh, that's good.
That I overwhelm you with words and wisdom?
I've got 7 kids. I feel like I could call you every day.
Wait, you're telling me I'm wrong? Disconnect.
Yes, I am, Dr. Ray.
You just need to tune in to Dr. Ray, honey. He's got all the answers.
Am I right or am I right?
Probably.
Now, from the studios of Living Bread Radio Network in Canton, Ohio, the hometown of Mother Angelica, here's Dr. Ray.
Dr. Ray, do you jog to stay fit? Absolutely. I started jogging when my kids were little. Every morning, I would get up and I would jog 5 times around the block. And then, at the end of the 5th time, I would put the block back into their toy box. So, yeah, I worked at it. This is The Doctor Is In. This is Look Back Friday, where we take previous calls. Myself, Andrew Kruchek, so I can use we correctly there. Find out a little bit about why this call is going to be reviewed, why it's going to be commented upon further on Look Back Friday. And there's a lot of reasons for that. Sometimes there's a term used I want to explore a little bit more deeply. Sometimes there's a question I could have gone. You can go in so many different directions. You have to kind of decide which one is going to be most helpful at the moment for the caller. But there are times when I want to go in a different direction, but because of the exigencies of the call, I don't. So I reserve Look Back Friday for that direction, and we will get to some of that. I've become more and more convinced this is the number one adjective leveled at children. Strong-willed. It had its genesis way back with focus on the family's James Dobson, who wrote The Strong-Willed Child. Now, I'm kind of surprised at Dr. Dobson. He's a Christian man, and he would know that strong-willed is basically human nature-willed. It's what we are. Bent, concupiscence, bent toward the self, stiff neck. We want to do what we want to do. So, strong will would seem to be normal-willed, but as an aside, there are multiple variants of strong-willed, and you hear those. Oh, she's so determined. Oh, this child. Black is white, white is black, going to do what she wants, just so independent. Mind of her own. Very high maintenance youngster, challenging child, very challenging child, very active child. We talked to the pediatrician. The pediatrician told us the problem. We have a difficult child. Difficult child is redundant. Why is this? Why all of a sudden are so many kids just so naturally pushback? I think a big explanation is that the parents don't have the authority they used to have. I'm not talking about a jackbooted kick the door down, I'm back and I'm ticked punk. No, I'm talking about a quiet, calm, strong, clear, loving authority. You mean what you say and you follow through and you support the values you're trying to teach, and you have to hold the kids accountable so you can do it and the world won't later. All of a sudden, that's just kind of become let's all get along. Gentle parenting is the latest iteration of that. I hope it dies out because it's ruining a lot of parents. It's also ruining a lot of grandparents' time around their kids who are being raised this way, their grandkids being raised this way. Are some kids more strong-willed than others? Of course they are. And that can make a child seem strong-willed when compared to a softer-willed child. I get this in my office all the time. The first kid comes in to the parents' lives, and it's a kind of relatively smooth child-rearing experience. And they think that's what parenting is. You know, we just put her to bed, we kissed her, we sang a song, and we told her a story, and we never had a bad time. And now this one comes along, and he fights bed every step of the way. What's wrong with him? Nothing. Your first one was a practice round, a mulligan. God said, here, play with this. I'll save the real kid till later. I'd say at least half the time when a parent comes into my office talking about how tough one of their kids is, I'll ask, is there an older brother or sister? Yes, nothing at all like this. Yeah, well, what makes you think the first one was normal? I think the first one was a freebie. And so, as a consequence, we think certain kids are strong-willed when it's only by comparison. They aren't necessarily that strong-willed. And interestingly enough, I wrote a book called Taught by 10 and talked about some of the things I learned as a father. Just experiences. I knew these things from having worked with folks, but they were confirmed in my own home. And one of these was, defiance is very much dependent upon, believe it or not, I know some of you are not going to like to hear this, but it's true, the parent's discipline style. Somebody asked my wife, a woman from church, we had 10 kids under 12 at one point. Somebody asked my wife, what would you do if one of your kids just defied your discipline? They wouldn't accept it. And my wife said, I don't know. And the woman was shocked. What do you mean you don't know? Could you not know? Are you telling me your kids never defy your discipline? She goes, well, they used to back when they were little, but they don't anymore. The woman continued, how could that be? And my wife said, well, I guess they know what's going to happen if they do. And so they're not going to. Oh, they may be sneaky. Okay, or they may try to weasel their way around something. Oh yeah, come on, they're kids. They're going to do that kind of scrap. But in terms of in your face, I'm not doing it. Don't try to make me go to the corner. What are you doing? That's crazy. That doesn't happen. We never had anybody refuse to write an essay for their snotty mouth. They didn't like it, and they may have stared at the paper for half an hour. But they didn't refuse. They didn't look at us like, make me. That wasn't going to happen because we were going to shut down every privilege they had if they did that. But we never had to do that, interestingly enough, because they had found out younger what would happen if you defy. So I guess what I'm saying is I didn't consider any of my kids particularly strong-willed. I had some that were stronger-willed than others. My one son, my oldest son, Andrew, I don't think I ever remember him at all. And my wife confirmed this, because she raised them as a single parent. And that what was amazing is I was there the whole time. She confirmed this. She said, yeah, Andrew, I don't ever recall Andrew ever in any way being disrespectful as a teenager. No dirty looks, no snotty remark, no nasty argument. That was Andrew. All right. Now we had some others that definitely pushed the system, but Andrew didn't. So were they stronger-willed than Andrew? Yeah. But Andrew just wasn't a pushy kid. He just didn't do that stuff. So it's kind of like getting a rest round. You know, you're like, here, you got a minute break here. We'll give you Andrew. He's easy enough. So all that said, I cringe when I hear everybody talking about how strong-willed their kids. And if I asked them, I know what I'm going to hear. If I ask, do you think he's strong-willed? Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Very strong-willed. And interestingly enough, and I've talked about this before on this program, what's the school see? Half the time, at least half the time, maybe more when they're below 4th or 5th grade. The school doesn't see any of this. Teacher says he's a delight. No problems whatsoever. She wishes she had a whole classroom full of him. Where'd all that strong will go? That teacher doesn't have a fraction of a parent's authority. How come that teacher's getting cooperation? Because the kid perceives that the teacher has some kind of authority, even though it's not anywhere near what a parent has. It's the perception that the teacher has that authority, and so that quote-unquote strength of will. But here's the other thing about strength of will. Christians of all people should recognize, confirmed by G.K. Chesterton, who said, the one doctrine of Christianity that has abundant empirical proof is fallen human nature. Just pick up any newspaper. Yeah, we are bent towards self-interest. We are. We spend our whole life trying to get past self-interest with God's grace, but that's the natural state of us. But yet, the shrinks have somehow turned that on its head. That's the only way I can explain this. The shrinks have decided, no, the natural state of a child is cooperation. They want to cooperate. No, they might want confirmation about their behavior. They might want compliments, but cooperate? Not if it goes against what they want to do. Come on, he's 5. What do you expect? He doesn't listen. He just doesn't listen. Of course not. When you say he doesn't listen, what you're really saying is he's a rational creature. If you find the right way to reason with him and explain yourself, then he will listen. Well, yeah, if we all lived by reason and rationale, yes. But we don't. We live by self-interest and emotion much of the time, especially kids. So be careful about strong-willed. It's heavy overused. I'm Dr. Ray.
There's that word again, heavy. Why are things so heavy in the future? Is there a problem with the Earth's gravitational pull?
The doctor is in. Now, don't you feel better?
This program is brought to you by the following nonprofit underwriter.
Join Catholics at the Shore 2026, May 7th through the 9th at the beautiful Icona in Avalon, New Jersey. This year's theme, Needing Nothing More, invites you to step away from the noise and encounter Christ. Speakers include Patricia Heaton, UFC champion Bas Rutten, and pro-life activist Christian Hawkins, along with other powerful Catholic voices. To learn more, go to CatholicsAtTheShore.com.
The following program is brought to you in part by MyCatholicWill.com. Surveys show that more than half of Americans do not have a will. At MyCatholicWill.com, it takes as little as 15 minutes to write your will and secure a legacy of faith. MyCatholicWill.com is the exclusive online destination for creating a Catholic will. The process of writing a will is simple and now more accessible than ever. MyCatholicWill.com, a legacy of faith for those you love.
The wisdom of Mother Angelica.
I told him about the woman who came to me and said her 2 children hadn't spoken to each other for 2 years. Their grandma died and she was very wealthy. She left half to each one. She said they're arguing over a commode. She said it's inlaid. Can you imagine being in hell and somebody saying to you, what are you here for?
EWTN. Live truth. Live Catholic.
Underwritten in part by the following nonprofit.
Do you feel as though life is flying past you? Are you desperate for a way to find moments of peace and quiet? Lord, Teach Me to Pray, the free Ignatian prayer series, will open your heart to His voice, to the peace you are seeking and the only love that fulfills the human heart, Jesus. God is calling you to true joy, knowing Jesus personally. Lord, Teach Me to Pray is free. Go to LordTeachMeToPray.com, click on the red box, order the Lord Teach Me to Pray series now. Go to LordTeachMeToPray.com.
Very nice to have you with me here, and the doctor is in Monday through Friday, 1 o'clock Eastern Time. This is Look Back Friday. Let's see what we've got. Let's try to time this, where I'm going to go with this. Yeah, let's go to Kelly. She is from Massachusetts, and her friends are accusing her son of, in my opening monologue, I said one of the most overused terms to describe children. I think this is fast becoming one of the most overused terms to describe grown-ups.
My friend is wondering, she has a son, and she's wondering if there's any mental health for him. He's willing to talk, and he's 18 years old. And these are some of his signs. I'll try to say them quickly. He thinks he can do things best or better than anyone else. He always has a better way to do things or a superior view. Really offers to do service or help someone unless there is something in it for him. Seems unconcerned about another's suffering. Really, if ever, says thank you unless there is something in it for him. And he talks about what it will be like when he goes into the seminary in spite of his serious lack of virtues, especially piety and sacrificial life. Denies another person said what that they have said, or claims another person said something that they never said. Conversations always center around his activities, achievements, and thoughts. He shows little concern for other people's lives. That's it in a nutshell, Doctor.
Well, I'll tell you what, that's a pretty big nutshell there, Kelly. You know what I think your friend? You know what I think your friend thinks? Your friend is going to go to the internet and look all this stuff up and go, "Oh, he's a narcissist."
That's what she's doing, Doctor.
How did I know that? Well, let me offer her this.
Okay.
One, it's irrelevant what she calls it. If she says, well, given that he has all these characteristics and all these habits and all this thinking, and that pretty well fits the characteristics and the symptom structure of a narcissist. Oh boy, I thought he was just a pain in the butt, but no, he's got a mental illness. No, he doesn't. He's got a name. That's all it is. Whether you call it narcissist, whether you call it self-centered, whether you call it difficult, whether you call it a pain in the butt, whatever you call it, that's what he's doing. It's who he is. Now, my guess would be, Kelly, maybe I'm off, because I'll tell you, I have to confess, when I made a guess and I was off, that happened. That happened. It was August 12th of 2004. Yeah, it was the last time that happened. So, my guess would be the kid's been kind of that way through the teen years.
Yeah, but it seems like because he's getting older, I guess it's just becoming more prominent.
Could be. Could be because he's becoming independent in his eyes, that he can do what he wants because he's not under mom's control anymore because I'm 18. It's interesting you said that because she listed all these character flaws, and then the kid's pondering going into the seminary?
Yeah.
Huh. Well, I would say a couple things here. One, she's going to have to deal with him as he is. She's going to have to deal with these characteristics, his lack of respect or his self-centeredness or his difficult or his not taking responsibility. Whatever it is, she's going to have to deal with it. Because I'm assuming he's still living in her house. That's one. Two, a narcissist is generally a certain way with everybody, not just mom.
And he's not. He knows
Okay.
the right thing to do when he does it when he's outside the home.
Right. So that would make him not a narcissist. All right.
Okay.
But that doesn't matter anyway, because, see, here's the difficulty in what she's doing. She's looking for a name explanation for why he is the way he is, rather than looking at herself and saying, what do I need to do to better discipline this kid or to better relate to this kid? That's what she's got to do. She can't just say, oh, I'm so relieved. I found out the problem. He's a narcissist. Oh, good. Now we can get him therapy. If he were a true narcissist, therapy doesn't work real well. All right? So if he's relatively pleasant and relatable to other people, then my guess would be the main point of contention is between him and his mom. One of my most recent books was How to Get Along with Almost Everybody. And I insisted on that almost being in the title because you're not going to get along with everybody. But your goal is to do better, especially with those in your inner circle, like in this case, her son. One of the chapters was Watch Your Language. And I made the point that psychology terms, narcissistic personality disorder is a psychology term. It's a clinical definition. Clinical personality, quote-unquote, disorder. And again, using the word disorder basically means the person is either more extreme or more long-term in showing these characteristics. We take what originates in the halls of academia, in halls of colleges, in maybe even medical psychiatric terminology, and we expand it. We move it into common lingo. 20 years ago, I rarely heard the word narcissist. Rarely. Now, oh man, seems like everybody that's difficult to get along with is a narcissist. Everybody says, she's a narcissist, he's a narcissist. Well, what does that mean? Does it mean they're self-centered? Does it mean they just think only about their wants? They're not empathic? Yeah, it can mean that, but it's got to be extreme. If you read the actual definition of narcissistic personality disorder, it's ugly. It's really ugly. And one of the points I made in that chapter was, once you label somebody a narcissist, or you label them toxic, or you label them emotionally abusive, once you do that, the temptation is to get you off the hook. You can't expect me to get along with them. Look at who they are. I had a lady write me once, and she said she went to the internet. Woo, danger, Will Robinson. I know, that's Lost in Space. None of you are going to remember that. I remember it. My grandmother told me about it. Once you go to the internet, and she said, I read it. I found out what the problem is. I found out what's wrong with my husband. He's a narcissist. It almost let her off the hook. I don't have to try anymore to try to get along with him. I don't have to learn how to roll with him. I don't have to learn so much how to not let him get to me. All the things that would bring her more peace and maybe smooth out some of the wrinkles in their marriage. She doesn't have to do that anymore. Because he's pathological. He's got something clinically wrong with him. And you cannot expect her as a layperson to deal with that. Professionals have to deal with that. It's very tricky. Very, very tricky using that kind of language. It's extreme language. Oppositional defiant disorder. Now, see, that's the most common diagnosis pretty much leveled at kids under age 10 who show behavior problems. But it makes it sound like there's something wrong with the kid. Whenever you say he's got a disorder. So where is the focus of that disorder? Where's the roots? Well, if you want to look at the research tells you what common sense tells you. Which is, yeah, there's a lot of discipline dynamics here that need to be altered and fixed. And then he won't be ODD anymore. Or he won't be as extreme a behavior problem as he was. So yeah, when you start labeling stuff disorders, now granted, there are certain severe psychiatric conditions. Absolutely. There's psychosis, there's severe depression, severe mania. Yes. There are developmental disorders, of course. But when you get into the realm of personality behavior disorders, that's when it gets fuzzy. And that's when we start to become amateur diagnosticians.
Wow.
It's time for Family Man with Dr. Gregory Popcak.
Does your family make regular time to work, play, talk, and pray together every day? Research shows that when Catholic families create strong, consistent daily rituals for working, playing, talking, and praying together, they set the stage for teaching their kids Christian attitudes toward work, leisure, relationships, and faith. If it's true that values are more caught than taught, family rituals are what makes a Christian worldview truly contagious. That's why the rite of family rituals is such an important part of the liturgy of domestic church life. It helps families come together as strong domestic churches and learn what it means to be intentional disciples at home and in the world. To discover more ways your family can celebrate the liturgy of domestic church life, check out the newest editions of Parenting with Grace and visit CatholicCounselors.com. I'm Dr. Greg Popcak, but you can call me Family Man.
To discover more ways faith can enrich your life, visit CatholicCounselors.com.
Christ is the answer, with Father John Riccardo.
Maybe we need to ask ourselves, do we really know Jesus? Maybe another way to ask that would be, how familiar are you with the Gospels? When I was living in D.C., I was on the plane taking a late flight home, sitting next to a young girl. She was probably 16, 17. I had my collar on, and we got talking, and she said somehow in the course of the conversation, she acknowledged that she was running away from home and was in the midst of an awful lot of difficulties that were going on. Her story seemed to be remarkably akin to the story of the prodigal son, which we just heard this past Sunday at Mass, And so I started to speak a little bit about that with her. And I said, you sound a little bit like the younger son in the story of the prodigal son. And she looked at me like I was from Mars. And I said, are you not familiar with the story of the prodigal son? And she says, no, never heard it. And I just looked at her and I says, oh my goodness, are you in for a wonderful evening?
The wisdom of Mother Angelica.
A very wonderful woman I knew had 4 children, and all 4 died. And somebody went up to her one day, and they said, oh, what a pity. And she said, oh, no, what a blessing. If we don't begin to look at everything with the eyes of Jesus, you will become helpless and hopeless.
For more information on Mother Angelica, visit Religious Catalog at EWTNRC.com.
Nice to have you with me here on the Doctor's In. I'm Dr. Ray Guarendi, Monday through Friday, 1 o'clock Eastern Time. It's Look Back Friday. So let's see what we got for questions we're going to look back on, or actually, more accurately, listen back on. And then we'll take me to the present where I am right now. I'm going to dip into the past for a moment. Listen to the particular question. Let's see, we got enough time there. I better go with that, the 4-minute one. Let's go to Anna Marie, who has a special child, and let's find out exactly what this special is. I'm Dr. Ray. She's commenting on my monologue because she saw a movie. And you know, one of the original movies that relates to the he's a special child, she's a special child, was the movie about Helen Keller. I forget the name of that movie, but the parents pretty much allowed Helen Keller to run wild because she both could not hear and could not see. So when Annie Sullivan, the lady who came to be her teacher and shaper, came into the family, they were initially very uneasy with old Annie Sullivan. What was the name of that movie? Somebody write in and tell me. Hi, Anne-Marie.
It was the movie Soul on Fire.
Soul on Fire. What was their point?
So it's a true story about a young boy who, playing with gasoline, basically burned down his house and suffered burns over 100% of his body, was given less than 1% chance of living, and basically not only survived the incident, but went on to thrive, and he's an acclaimed speaker. His name is John O'Leary. But the point about your monologue that I thought was such a beautiful illustration was that in the process of his recovery, his fingers were amputated. And when he finally came back home, I think after 6 months in the hospital, he had siblings, and he kind of had an attitude about his piano lessons before the incident happened. And one day his piano teacher showed up, and he looked at his mother and said, "What's she doing here? Like, why am I taking piano lessons? I don't even have fingers." And his mother said, in this home, and they were a Christian family, I think Catholic, all of my children take piano lessons, and I don't know what makes you think you're so special. So she ended up making him take the lessons. He ended up learning to play piano. And it's just, I thought, a beautiful illustration of, yes, it's hard. And certainly this boy was up against a lot of challenges, but we don't do anybody any favors by treating them as special when we know it's in their best interest. So I just thought it's a fantastic movie, but it also really illustrated your point.
What exactly was the name of the movie again? Soul on Fire?
Soul on Fire. It's in the movie theaters right now. Yeah, it's excellent.
And this guy went on to be a national speaker to basically overcome the kinds of handicaps to his body from the fire.
Yes, I believe, well, I can't remember which city he lived in. The Cardinals play there. I'm not a sports person. Whatever city the Cardinals baseball team plays in, that's where this took place.
St. Louis?
And I think it's sad that our church doesn't advertise these films more because we know there's such garbage in the theaters, and yet these type of productions are coming out. I was only one of 6 people in the theater, and so I also would love to spread the word to take your family and go see this film.
Yeah, 6 people in the theater, huh? Well, Anne-Marie, thank you, because I see that a ton as a therapist. When you get to a parent that comes in and they're having trouble with their kid and there are discipline issues and there are reluctancies, a common explanation is we view this child as somehow different from normal kids. And because of that, we are nervous, we are reluctant, we feel bad about holding him accountable, disciplining him, because we realize his own frustration over what life has done to him or what he's dealing with is enough. So I see that. I see that a lot.
Yes.
I used to consult to several Head Start programs. Got called in for a little guy, 4 years old, profound hearing loss. And I got called in because he was a significant management problem in the classroom. And I talked with the parents. Wanted to find out a little bit about what was going on in the home, the dynamics, why this young man was so problematic. And it became clear that they felt that life had ripped him off, that he had to struggle and deal with the fact that he was not normal hearing, and therefore to expect him to learn proper social conduct to control his 4-year-old impulses would be too much, pushing him too hard. He needs a certain wide berth of allowance for his conduct. And I remember, I don't know if the young man made it in the class or not, because I don't think they were willing to change. And I remember telling the teacher, well, I asked her, I said, in your opinion, which is his greater handicap? His significant hearing loss or the fact the other kids don't want to have anything to do with him? And she goes, by far, his social. And that's what they were doing. They were so kind in their mind that they were kind of mean because they were setting this poor kid up already. Already the other kids were avoiding him. And it wouldn't be because of the hearing problem. The other kids would be very tolerant of the hearing problem. They would try to maybe even learn a little sign language and do different things to help him be part of the gang. But they didn't want him to be part of the gang because he was so obnoxious. And it wasn't his fault. He's only 4. You can't blame a 4-year-old. 4-year-olds do what 4-year-olds do if you let them. And by the way, just as an aside, while I was listening to Anne-Marie's call, it occurred to me what the name of the movie was with Helen Keller, and Patty Duke played Helen Keller. The Miracle Worker. Her teacher, Annie Sullivan, the Miracle Worker. Sometimes the special child rationale is temporary. I see that a lot in divorces, where the single parent has a lot of guilt because maybe dad or mom left the family And this kid is now being raised without a full-time mom, a full-time dad, and there's a lot of he's a special child because of that. Although sadly, that's not all that special anymore. It's becoming the norm. But they feel like I can't really expect him to dry the dishes too because he's already hurting, missing his dad or his mom. And that only hurts the child. I can talk about this when I come back. I want to share with you a little private situation with our own children when we adopted them. And I can share this because the foster parents have both since passed away. So I'm not revealing anything that is of confidentiality. And it was kind of well known because at the time, believe it or not, it got a lot of TV attention. All righty. So this music will start here momentarily. This is The Doctor Is In. This is Look Back Friday. And I thank you for joining me.
The Heart of the Interior Life with Elizabeth Jangle.
How do we respond to the gift of spiritual consolation? In the 10th rule of St. Ignatius of Loyola's 14 rules for the discernment of spirits, St. Ignatius of Loyola teaches, "Let the one who is in consolation think how he will conduct himself in the desolation which will come after, taking new strength for that time." When we receive the gift of spiritual consolation, the primary task is to welcome this grace and the blessing it is intended to bring into our lives, to strengthen us, to console us, and to fill our hearts with God's love. Father Timothy Gallagher writes, "Before spiritual consolation serves any additional purpose, however valuable, such consolation is above all a gift of God to be received with gratitude and from which to gain new energy in the ways God intends. It is God's look of love upon us, imprinting grace within our hearts."
For more information, visit AveMariaRadio.net.
Living the Beatitudes with Father Bjorn.
Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Mother Angelica said that the essence of evangelization is to tell everyone that Jesus loves you. Matt Fradd says that it is one beggar showing another beggar where to find bread. Are we so full of the things of the world that we can't hear or receive the gifts that God is giving to us? In Isaiah we hear, "The Lord delights in you. I've called you by name. You are mine. You are precious in my eyes, and I love you." Well, we often don't want to hear that, and in the Gospel of Matthew, it hits us over the head even more that we're invited to be part of the kingdom of God. Jesus is king, and he's come to establish his kingdom. The Beatitudes are the 8 roads to God. They lead us with his gifts of the Holy Spirit to become the new person in Christ who will find happiness and bring that happiness to others. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven.
For more about the Beatitudes, visit EWTNRC.com.
Nice to have you here, Dr. Agurendi. All right, I want to comment a little bit. I'm going to look back on that look back. So this would be really, if you remember your binomial equations in algebra, this would be look back squared. My son and daughter that we adopted at age 4. Now, this isn't anything that they wouldn't know. Well, they don't listen to the show anyway, so I don't have to worry about that. But this isn't anything they wouldn't know because we've talked about it and we've laughed about it many, many times with them. We adopted them at age 4. They were in foster care for approximately 2 to 2.5 years, and it was a very loose environment. The foster parents were nice people, but they just didn't discipline them because they felt guilty. They felt that these kids were special kids. So therefore, the discipline and the limits were very close to non-existent. When we got the kids, it was clear. This is up to that point we had 4 children adopted, and all 4 of them we had adopted in infancy. So therefore, we had the chance to establish a discipline structure and authority and love from almost the get-go, a few weeks after birth. But these kids were 4, and they had a history of pretty unstructured kind of existence, which they came with a number of behavior problems. Number of significant behavior problems. And I remember telling my wife, honey, John and Joanne are getting more than their fair share of discipline here. maybe we should ease up on our standards. And my wife said, Raymond, you big dummy. Okay, she didn't say that, but I read her face. And if she would have put her face to words, that's what she would have said. She said, we can't do that if the same standards across the board. Now, I knew this, but I was just kind of rippling the waters. She said, let's just make sure we give John and Joe a lot more hugs and kisses because we got to counterbalance the fact that they're spending more time in the corner than anybody else. But they were, quote unquote, special children. And interestingly enough, we've since found out that my son and daughter, John and Joanna, the 4-year-old twins, had chances to be adopted prior to us. We were not the first family selected. As I said, we had 4 kids. They weren't looking at us. At that point, our kids were 6, 5, 3, and 1, and they weren't going to slot a couple of 4-year-olds right there in the middle, which they ended up doing anyway, because the 2 families chosen prior to us both backed out. And I don't know exactly the reasons, but there's a part of me that suspects it was because the kids were so undisciplined. And they were. There was a number of things. Johnny punched me in the face, attempts to strangle my wife during some of our early visits. It's like, whoa, okay, I don't know if the tax deduction's worth it here, you know. But, in fact, we got that under control relatively quickly. Took about a year, but it was under much, much better control. But it was because their mindset was these kids are special. And what was the result? What was the outcome? Well, the immediate outcome was that they lost 2 potential adoptive families before we came along. Well, I needed the tax deductions. It was getting close to the end of the year, and you get the tax deduction for the whole year if you adopt in December. Yeah, that's a pretty good thing. All right, let me do this. Let me take an early break, Andrew, just an early soft break, and then I'll come back, and we got a couple of longer look backs, and it'll give us enough time to carry us out to the end of the program. This is Dr. Ray. Thank you for joining me.
Dr. Ray has more great advice soon. Don't go anywhere.
Do you own popular index mutual funds or ETFs? If so, you're automatically own shares of companies that conflict with your moral beliefs. Ave Maria mutual funds are managed to conform to pro-life and pro-family values. Long-term investors can invest in the no-load Ave Maria mutual funds. The experienced professional portfolio managers make decisions based on investment fundamentals and pro-life values. You can learn more about Ave Maria mutual funds today at 866-AVE-MARIA or visit AveMariaFunds.com.
In the annals of prayer, why is Elijah such an important figure? Elijah is the father of the prophets, the Catholic Catechism tells us. The mission of the prophets was to educate the people of God so that they might experience conversion of the heart rather than merely participating in the ritual practices of religion. St. James, in referring to Elijah, says, "The prayer of the righteous is powerful and effective." This is affirmed when Elijah asks God to restore the life of the son of a widow, and the Lord hears and answers Elijah's prayer. On Mount Carmel, Elijah challenges 450 prophets of Baal to a prayer duel before all the Israelites. Baal proves to be a false god, giving no answer to pleas from his prophets, while the God of Israel proves to be the true God by producing in response to Elijah's intercessory prayer a mighty fire to consume the Holocaust. This is Peggy Stanton, and this has been the Order of Malta's Minute with the Catechism.
Announcing again our popular St. Paul Mediterranean cruise and pilgrimage, visiting over 10 biblical sites. You'll never read the New Testament the same again after exploring Athens, Ephesus, Corinth, Thessalonica, Philippi, Crete, and the Greek Isles, and much more. Mass at Mary's house. Our luxurious celebrity cruise liner awaits you.
To learn more about your Ave Maria Radio trip, find the Ave Maria Radio Travel tab at AveMariaRadio.net.
Thank you for joining me here on Look Back Friday. Let's get this last one in. Renee is calling from Idaho, or she was calling from Idaho. She has 10 children. And the shadow of alcoholism is lurking around her family. I'm Dr. Ray.
I have 10 kids. I've called you before. I had less kids then. But not that that matters. But I'm really on the fence about a little bit about what I'm currently doing, which is attending AA and Al-Anon meetings, because initially it's been on my mind a long time to do because my dad's an alcoholic. My sisters are too, even though they don't know it. And it's just kind of been a problem in my family. My father-in-law has been going to AA meetings for 25 years, even though he doesn't drink anymore. And I don't know, I just thought it might be helpful, and I've realized that I get really anxious when I have to deal with my, formerly immediate family.
Are you,
live out of state.
Renee, you drinking? Are you saying that alcohol interferes with my functioning as a mother? And
I'm Catholic, like we drink to celebrate. I am a creature of habit, so if I have a drink or two one day, then the next few days I want to also do the same. I'm just really habitual person. And I wouldn't say I drink to get drunk. There's been times where I drink it too fast and I feel dizzy. I know maybe in some ways it sounds scrupulous, but I definitely see that it affects me as far as like being more impatient sometimes the next day. And I struggle with making resolutions in other areas too. Like for instance, if I were to try to give up chocolate, it would be really hard for me. And I've always wanted to be able to give up alcohol to kind of combine it with my prayers for my family, especially as my dad's getting older. He's got heart problems. I see on the horizon him dying and different things like that happening. I've got 10 children. You never know what could happen. And I see myself using alcohol as an unhealthy coping mechanism, and I don't want to be inordinately attached to it. And so I've kind of been thinking, okay, maybe this is what I'm supposed to do to help me, not detach. And they talk about in AA about how how much you drink doesn't make you an alcoholic. It's how you think. It's how much you think about it, and it's whether or not you can, just stop thinking about it. And I don't know. I'm torn about I just want to know your thoughts on it. And
you drink more that you've had more kids?
Catholic program.
With more kids, have you drunk?
Drink more?
Yeah. Do you find yourself drinking more with the addition of kids?
I find myself just relaxing in a lot of areas, and I just feel like that's just one more where I'm like, oh yeah, like I don't know. It was so normalized for me growing up. I see what it's done to some family members, and I kind of think maybe there's a threshold where you get too careless. I don't know. I definitely am a nervous, worrying person. My dad has accused me of being OCD.
Sounds like it. Okay, a couple of things. Yeah. One, you're nervous because it runs in your family, and you're thinking, whether I realize it or not, genetically I'm being pushed that way. That would make me a higher risk. Roughly, the genetic contribution to someone's predisposition to serious alcohol problems is about 25%. Okay, so it's not automatic here. Matter of fact, it's even less than a 50-50 chance. So in that sense, you're not destined to ultimately lose control over your alcohol intake. All right, that's one.
Sure.
Two, you don't like the fact that as things kind of pile on you, man, you got 10 kids, all right? You don't like the fact that when all this happens, you want to relax, you want to take the edge off. Okay, well, I can have one or two, but man, that felt so good. Oh, gosh, all right, well, maybe tomorrow I'll have another couple too. So what is stopping you, and I don't want to interfere with the stuff you're going through with AA, but what is stopping you from saying, I've seen what's happening with my family members, I don't like it, I have an enormous God-given responsibility to these kids to be functioning at absolute peak, and therefore I'm going to either stop completely or have one glass of wine a day. What's stopping you from doing that?
I don't know. Just I struggle with boundaries, both for myself and my children. I feel like I just need a support system. So I feel like that's kind of where this is being helpful, but it's also taking a lot of my time.
But it ain't being helpful.
Meetings.
It's well, you mean AA? Yeah, I can't make a judgment on that right now. If you could, and by the way, I saw some research that said, the number one way that people stop an addictive kind of behavior. Do you know the number one way?
No. They
decide that's enough. It's hurting them too much. It's causing complications.
Right.
It's destroying what is dear to them. It's number one thing.
Yeah.
So you're not helpless. You're not, I have to have AA because if I don't, I will simply just get worse and worse. And two drinks a day will be 3 drinks a day, will be 5 drinks a day, will be 7 drinks a day. Well, that hasn't happened for however many years, so it's unlikely to happen. But I would say this, you will probably have to look at this and say, I got to find better ways to cope with whatever it is that makes me want to have these drinks to relax myself. Whatever it is. We get in trouble when we overanalyze. You can see what Renee's doing. She kind of extrapolated all this out to what she saw as a general lack of self-control. In other words, the shadow of her parents' alcoholism made her very nervous about a glass of wine. Now, one might say, and there is that long-standing theory that if alcoholism is a potential problem, then one drink will put you over the edge, and the research doesn't seem to support that, by the way. Okay, so that's just a thought here. I don't want to get in an argument about that, but that said, she is fearful that what is happening here, which most people, if they were not looking through the prism of past alcoholism in her family, most people would not be shook up over saying, yeah, I have a glass of wine. Kind of feels good. I like it. Makes me relax. That's nice. And probably a whole lot of people would say, well, you got 10 kids. Holy mackerel, I'm surprised you're not on sedatives. Okay. Being facetious, that is. So I guess for Renee, it is, does it interfere? Is this something that she's turning to more frequently? It doesn't sound like it. It does not sound like it. I think what she's doing is a what if. What if I turn to it more frequently? That hasn't happened yet, it sounds, from what she said. So, one, is it something that she is tempted more heavily? Two, does she not stop if she has a little glass of wine in the evening and it's nice? It's just, it tastes good. It's in her mind settling, although probably not, but it's placebo settling. So that's nice. Okay, it's a little bit of maybe a felt sedation kind of thing, relaxing. But if that's all it is, then she has a tough question. And the question is, how much is my past making me overanalyze my present? We do that all the time, especially with the onslaught of so much psychology. You know, we're such creatures of our past, and our pasts are something that just reverberates into our present, and you always have to know your past because that really tells you what you are. It may be a factor in presently who you are, but presently who you are has to be viewed as a more powerful factor in getting past your past. A priest friend of mine always said that. He said, you know, when people are so convinced that their past has made them indelibly who they are, and there's not a whole lot they can do about it, you know, it's just a trauma of the past. He said, if they're a Christian, it's kind of like saying the Holy Spirit is powerless. The Holy Spirit can't act. The Holy Spirit would have to say, well, you know, I wanted to convert you. I wanted to really shape your soul closer to the Lord, but you just didn't have that past, you know? That past is what's doing it. That's the big stumbling block here. Yeah, I don't really think that's too theologically sound. So, in fact, I would want to talk to Renee a lot more about what it is that is she's extrapolating from that is scaring her about having, and maybe I missed it. Maybe there was something in between what she said that I missed that was scaring her about if I want to drink and I find some comfort in a little glass of wine, that's risky. Okay. Thank you for joining me here on Look Back Friday. My producer, man, Andrew Kruchek, who takes care of those calls and cleans them up for me. I appreciate that. And I appreciate your company. Good Lord permitting, I'll see you Monday. Walk with God. That's a relaxing walk. It should be, you know.
For information on Dr. Ray's presentations, books, and CDs, visit drray.com and follow him on Facebook and Instagram. The Doctor Is In is a co-production of Ave Maria Radio and EWTN Radio and carried across the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network.